I was preparing a workshop on compassion fatigue, and as I looked at the symptoms, which is a version of burnout, but it's more in the people helping professions. As I looked at those symptoms of compassion fatigue, I was like, this is me. This is me, and I need to do something about it.
And whatever community looks like for you, you can't be truly self-aware without the feedback from others. And you need to have those people around you that you can trust and that you can walk alongside with. And maybe it looks like
recognizing it's not all about me, and it's not all about my individual purpose as well. We are in this together. I need to lean on people. I actually need to ask people for help, because in reality, all the best things I've done in my life, I've done with people, not on my own.
Welcome, Helen.
Thanks, Luke.
And I'd love to introduce you guys. I've been really excited for this. And I'd like to introduce all you wonderful Durban peeps to my good friend, Helen Roome. Maybe you can take the next few minutes just to introduce yourself, tell us a bit about what you do, and we can go from there.
Thanks, Luke. It's awesome to be with you. I think we've wanted to do this for a while.
We have.
And it's actually been a great sort of exercise and reflection for me, because in leading up to it and knowing the kind of conversation you want to have, it's been a chance for me to kind of look back over my career, my life story, and go, hey, how did I get here? So I'm an occupational therapist. I have worked as an occupational therapist for over 25 years, currently in independent practice here in the Kloof area, mostly online, and working with people with persistent pain and fatigue is really my scope of practice.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at right now, yeah.
That's cool. So you wouldn't strictly say that you're a small business, because I know in the medical field you can't really... How does that work?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because, I would call myself a practice, not a small business. But in many senses, business principles need to come into it. I mean, this needs to be sustainable. But I think some of the constraints on us as healthcare practitioners are really about ethical issues. There's certain ways that we can and can't market ourselves. I think at the end of the day, what it is for healthcare practitioners is really that we are not selling a product, although that might be part of some people's practices, I guess, but it's more like we are selling ourselves. I am what I am offering people. It's this package of knowledge, skills, experience. This is what I'm marketing to people. And I have to be quite sober and cautious about how I handle people. These are my clients. These are people I'm offering a service to. But it's not quite the same as a business where I'm concerned about profits and how I'm marketing. So it's a little different from a business. But I think over time, as practitioners, we've had to be a little bit more aware of how do we sustain ourselves in a competitive market, I guess, in a competitive field anyway. But I would say strictly I'm a practitioner with a practice offering myself to people who need help.
So you still are building a brand, but it's more personal brand than a corporate brand but it's still branding. The principles are the same.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways it's probably the healthier way of doing branding and marketing is on a personal level,
Definitely.
Person to person.
Yeah.
So the only difference is that you're not necessarily branding or marketing yourself to like a business to business. You're doing business to consumer.
Yeah.
But they're not really consumers because they're patients or are they patients?
Well, actually, so we've moved quite a lot away from talking about people as patients, because that's quite a passive term, and definitely we're now more in that sort of space of saying we are offering a service to clients. But really, in pain management, we also focus much more on the person. So this is not a patient I'm seeing. This is a person coming to me, and this is a partnership we're creating together. But I would guess that anyone in business although you might be selling a product, at the end of the day, it is you that people are trusting.
Yeah.
And I would hope that no one gets too far removed from their product, that they think that they are just, selling a product to someone. It's actually you, and it is that personal connection at the end of the day, regardless of your business. Hey,
Completely.
so it's important that we are building trust, and that we are, we're aware that it is us behind the product that we're selling.
Yeah, which the principles, again, it boils down. I think especially on a small business level, you do that. I guess it depends on what you're selling and what your business is built around. But in my case, I basically sell video production services and services for podcasters, but I'm not just selling that, I'm selling myself.
Yeah, it's Luke that people are going to.
It's me. So I go
trust.
to a doctor because I like the doctor, and the doctor practices medicine well.
Right.
I don't just go to a doctor because that's the function he serves.
Right.
Yeah,
Totally. It's competency
Yeah.
plus that trust and that sort of personal factor.
Have you seen or noticed a movement more towards that kind of interaction in the business and maybe even in the practice world, where people are coming to you more for who you are and what you do, rather than just what you do and what the function that you...
Totally. I think that's partly relevant for me as an occupational therapist, which is a health profession less well understood, I guess. So often people are coming to me by word of mouth, which I think is usually the best way that we grow in our business or practice. And they're coming to me because they've heard of me, and then they sort of find out I'm an occupational therapist, and they're like,
Okay.
What do OTs have to do with adults, first of all, and pain? So what I'm saying is, I think it's definitely they've heard of Helen, and they're coming to me. And I think that's really important in this day and age where we've got all sorts of influencers out there. So, on Insta, on various social media, we've got anybody advising people on their health and life.
Yeah.
And because they've got 1 million followers, they are sort of trusted. And I think in the health profession world, there is a growing concern as to where is the value of expertise. I totally value people's lived experience. I think people can be experts by experience, but it's that whole balance of where is the expert input from a sort of a knowledge base, where is the expertise from experience. So I think for me as a person, yes, it's about hopefully coming to me not just because I have expertise in terms of knowledge and studying and all of that, but also because I am an empathetic person, or I am someone who appreciates the lived experience of someone. So it's all of those qualities, I think, wrapped up together that make you maybe a trustworthy person or someone to come to.
I think that lived experiencing is really important because, I've seen, these 18-year-old influencers giving everybody life advice, and it's like, you haven't lived.
You've hardly lived.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that whole thing of, I mentioned it in a couple of episodes ago with Debbie from Deaf Kids International. We were talking a little bit about finding your purpose, as we alluded to it. Like, can you really find your purpose as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old and get to my age where I'm bordering almost 40? I'm thinking,
hello 50.
Yes. And it's kind of like you can't really find your purpose as a young 20-year-old because maybe, but you don't have any reference to life. You don't have. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Totally. This is one of the things I was reflecting on in coming here today, was just, like I said, how did I get here? And what have been the mix of things that have got me here? Because I think that's the reality, is that there's multiple things that come together. So purpose for me is not a static thing that is out there that I then strive towards and, oh, yay, I reached it, and now I'm living my purpose. it's more like, so I've used this phrase before, sometimes you live the dream and sometimes the dream lives you.
Yes.
And I think we can use that with the word purpose. So I have found that I have discovered my purpose along the way, but it evolves and it comes through different vehicles. But yes, I can probably now, closer to the age of 50, articulate more what my sense of purpose is. But I hope it is evolving. Like, I hope this isn't it, I hope this isn't static. So for me, purpose comes together with a mix of decisions I've made and been sort of maybe quite disciplined and goal-directed with, plus what we could call serendipity or faith. I'm a person of faith, so I believe there are influences beyond me that come into my life, plus people and their needs. So I feel like purpose is this real mix, sometimes messy, of these multiple things coming together. And if anyone at the age of 20 said to me, I found my purpose, I would say, great. I mean, I think you might have found some of it, but don't hold on too tightly to that, or don't package that.
Maybe you found a passion.
Yeah.
Not your purpose.
Yeah. And let, just let this evolve. Just let the dream emerge still, because you're probably not there. And in any case, is purpose our driving force? I don't know. Might be one of the things.
It's a good question.
But are we meant to be a purpose-driven people? Now I'm asking you the questions, Luke.
No, that's good. I think I've got opinions on that.
Sure.
But I think it might be wrapped up in your belief systems too.
Sure, yeah.
So as you get older and you get more life experience, your belief systems change. So you're very young and purpose-driven. When we're in those stages of life.
Right.
C.S. Lewis talks about it too. You have your stages of life, and you're young and you're passionate and you're finding a sense of purpose, and you think you found your purpose and you just give everything into that thing. And then you get to your 30s and you have kids and all these things start unraveling, and what you think was your purpose and what you think you believed and what you think you knew,
exactly,
you don't. And I think I think your belief system changes as you get older.
I should hope it does to some extent.
I think it's a healthy thing. Yeah, it's a really healthy thing.
So kind of what you're describing there is exactly that what I'm saying, in terms of your purpose is shaped a little bit by also your context. So you're talking about those early days when you actually, so you're studying a degree towards a specific career you've thought of. And so your purpose then seems to be a lot about your work, right? And what career and how am I studying towards that? Whereas, like you say, you hit your stage when maybe you're thinking of family, and then it becomes more about connection and relationships, and that starts to feed into purpose. So probably where I'm at now with two, so a daughter of 20, a son of 17, I'm starting to move into that phase where it's about these relationships with my adult children. It's about relationships and networking with others. It's about more big picture stuff than when I was a young 20-something-year-old therapist and it was about the career path.
Yeah.
So both are important. So I think purpose-driven, yes, maybe not driven so much. I'm not so much into the drivenness, but purposeful, but maybe connection motivated, or love motivated, or just bringing in that relationship side, recognizing it's not all about me and it's not all about my individual purpose as well. It's we are in this together.
Have you found that working as an OT, you're working with people all the time?
Yeah.
So have you found that you in any way have lost your sense of purpose working when you continuously giving out to people and helping them with their stuff? Because I know you practice in OT, but I know that you do far more than that. I know you've delved into personal development, and there's a bit of a psychological side to it, and it's been so knowing what you do and who Helen is. Have you ever found that you sense you've lost your way a bit, or just purely by giving out all the time? And if so, how did you? What have you done?
Come back from that? Yeah. I have, and probably more than once. And I think it is a potential challenge of a people-helping profession like this. So yes, OTs, my day is filled with people and with listening to, at this stage with the work I do now, listening to people's stories of suffering. And although I have been equipped with certain skills, boundaries, all of these important skills, for example, end of last year, I did reach a point where funny enough, I was preparing a workshop on compassion fatigue for a group of teachers. And as I looked at the symptoms of compassion fatigue, which is a version of burnout, but it's more in the people helping professions. As I looked at those symptoms of compassion fatigue, I was like, this is me. Yeah. This is me, and I need to do something about it. So I made some decisions. So end of last year, I felt that I did burnout or have compassion fatigue, and it got me to, first of all, take a time out to rest. But I knew that taking a big chunk of time to rest is not something sustainable. We can't just every couple of months take a whole month off and rest.
It would be amazing.
I'd love it, but my life needed to change, and so I had to intentionally look at ways of, again, I put it in 3 words. 1, lean on people, lean on God as a person of faith, lean on my spiritual life, lean on people, because whether it's just personality or a trauma response, I'm a very independent person. I seldom ask for help. I often don't think I need it. So I had to reflect on that again and go, hey, I need to lean on people. I actually need to ask people for help, because in reality, all the best things I've done in my life, I've done with people, not on my own.
Yeah.
So just committing myself, I suppose, to leaning. Then the second thing that came to me was lifting people as I go. And what I mean by that is the way I'm trying to work with people in pain or with fatigue is not as the expert giving advice or sort of some kind of a top-down approach or let me tell you, but really that thing of partnership. And actually, I'm just here to support you and to draw out of you the resources you have. And so lifting people, I think, helps us because we're not carrying this load for them. We are lifting with us, and we're saying, hey, how do we do it together? And that's a burden then that I take off myself as a healthcare professional. And the last thing that I took away from that experience was to live what I preach. Yes. So I've tried to be good at that over the years. OTs, we are all about balance. We're all about, just helping people to live healthy, balanced lives. And we are sometimes the most imbalanced. And I had to relook at my own daily habits, my own health, my social connections, all of that, and say, okay, I need to be living this myself, and in what ways aren't I? So that was a important, I think, renewal in a way for me, end of last year, and I've tried to bring that forward into this year.
That's awesome. And is that, I'm trying to remember, but is that when you started writing
on
your next project?
Book, yes. Right. Actually, that started in 2021, end of 2021. So that's been an 18-month process of writing a book. And I've brought it with me to show.
Please show us.
So this is the book I've written for people living with persistent pain. It's Your Pain Playbook. So as I said, started that in 2021. Really because my passion, my intention is to help people to manage for themselves, to support them in managing their chronic condition.
Okay.
So that's been an 18-month process, just recently published on
Yes,
Amazon.
very
So
exciting.
it's available on all Amazon marketplaces. And then I have hard or paperback copies
Yeah.
for South Africans to order from me.
And that would be for people that are struggling with pain, with conditions like fibromyalgia.
Right,
and
right. Yeah.
What else?
Chronic low back pain, your arthritic conditions. So my work is with people who have had pain for more than 3 months, and it's a pain that has become more difficult to make sense of. It's a pain that's spread. So we look at chronic pain, we call it, or persistent pain. It's kind of a condition by itself. It becomes its own beast in a way that people live with. So often the people I'm working with have had pain for many, many years.
Yeah.
It comes with some other symptoms as well. But yes, fibromyalgia, chronic low back pain is the most common condition in the world. But we know the stats globally, even here in South Africa as well, are that 1 in 5 people live with chronic pain.
Like on
1
a
in
year-to-year
5.
basis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And
chronic,
is it just from like, I'm assuming not just from heavy lifting and not lifting stuff properly. It's probably linked to the psychological.
Right. So that's part of the understanding we've gained
Okay.
about pain in the last few decades, is that
Very interesting.
pain, especially the kind of persistent pain that we're talking about, is not as closely linked to the body as we used to think. It's not as simple as an injury in the body equals pain, that there are these other factors that come into it. So it does start to become quite complex, and there might be physical, psychological, and even those kind of social, contextual factors that add up to pain. So here in our South African context, being a very traumatized nation, being an impoverished nation, there are many sort of quite big social factors, contextual factors, environmental factors that might add into pain. So yeah, it's not as simple as, oh hey, you fractured a bone, your pain makes total sense. It does for that kind of injury, but we're talking about people who've had pain for 10 years. There's nothing in their body that isn't healed or okay, but it is these other systems in the body that are
It's very interesting.
on the high alert and are causing pain.
So could that be, those kinds of things be high stress levels?
Yeah.
Which that itself could be a myriad of your work environment, your family environment, your so your context.
Yeah, right.
So it's not necessarily just an injury.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So something might start with an injury, but most physical injuries are healed by about 3 months. That's why we use that kind of time criteria. It's not the only thing we look at, but most things in your body sort themselves out within about a 3-month period. If pain continues after that, we've got to go, why? What's going on there? And that's when we need to look at, hey, firstly, what's your history? So with my work with fibromyalgia, it's quite a big area of interest for me. We commonly see many adverse childhood experiences, we call them. So that's abuse. It could be just experiencing a parent who's a substance abuser, whatever. Childhood things, chronic stress, various factors that come in that have all sort of almost stacked up. And now, with some kind of recent trigger, those things that stacked up come into play.
Yeah.
And they start to allow this perpetuation of pain.
Is it that whole thing of your body remembers?
Totally.
Yeah.
There's that great book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay.
By Bezel van der Kolk. He's a psychiatrist. But it's about not just your body, but your brain remembering and trying to protect you. This is the thing about pain, is that pain is a protective function. It's like an alarm. It has its place. We don't want to get rid of pain because then we'd have other problems. Pain has its place, but we're talking about a pain that has become overprotective, an alarm that is going off for less obvious reasons, and it's starting to overwhelm the person's capacity and their function. Functioning.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So that's what this is for. This is not
awesome,
necessarily for people who've just fractured a bone and 3 months later they're still in pain. This is for people where pain has overwhelmed them. It's less easy to understand, and it's starting to take over their life. Yeah, and you can. The promise, in a sense, of this book, or the hope of my book, is that there is so much you can do. You, the person with pain, can begin to use daily habits and strategies to get ahead of this, to get beyond this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. Have you found that there's been an uptick in people with chronic pain from, say, 2 or 3 years ago? Because I know you mentioned we're a traumatized nation, and I think particularly in KZN too, we've had we've had the COVID response and the COVID this, and we've had the rioting, we've had the flooding, and all of those have been left unresolved.
Yeah.
Have you found there's maybe not a direct correlation, or have you found that there's maybe a related connection there?
So I unfortunately don't have sort of stats at my disposal, but I can say from sort of my clinical experience that yes, we are seeing more persistent pain coming through. So some of that is long COVID, which is a reality. It is a very real condition that millions of people across the world are suffering from. So there's long COVID, but yes, for KZN, I've noticed, for example, that people coming to me for a consult and we start talking about their history, that people in KZN have divided time between pre-COVID, COVID, the riots, the floods, and now.
Yeah, it's like 4 time zones.
Yeah, and as soon as someone starts dividing their history into clear time zones with these clear markers, I know that's a traumatized person.
Which is the majority of us.
It is. Yeah. It is. We all traumatized to some extent. And look, I'm not someone who uses the word trauma or traumatized easily. I kind of find it irritating when we call everything traumatic. But what trauma really is a sort of unexpected and overwhelming experience for someone that they don't feel they have the capacity to cope with, to sort of meet the demand of that experience. That's trauma, and I think for a lot of us that's been the reality. So KZNers, I think, have experienced trauma, and it's going to come through in pain. Yeah. It's also going to come through in fatigue and in depression and other mental illness, because that's how our bodies and brains work. Yeah. Hey, let me tell you, you're not safe, or you have a problem or a challenge that you need to address. So I'm going to get your attention. I'm going to get your attention with pain or fatigue or depression or whatever that alarm is that starts to go off.
And then, so what happens then is that we just keep popping the pain pills and the meds to numb that.
We might do that.
And we most likely never deal with actual issues.
Right.
And become free.
Yeah. And I really want people to know that, like I said earlier, there is so much you can do. Your body is more robust than you think. It has capacity to heal itself. It is plastic. We talk about plasticity of the body and brain. But also you are probably more resilient than you think. And you have social support to draw on. And you have these things that can help you deal with this. Pills and surgery might have their place. But often we are missing the what we would call more active coping strategies for managing pain. And they're there. Yeah. There are daily things you can do that can change not just how you manage pain, but the way you're living your life.
Yes.
Beyond that.
Yeah. So how I think self-awareness is such a, and this stems into this, it all comes out of that, is that self-awareness is probably one of the most powerful tools and skills that we can develop, I believe.
Yeah, agreed.
And I mean, I know what this is about. A lot of it is going to be about developing that self-awareness, knowing where your boundaries are and how far you can push, and then maybe pushing yourself a little bit further and kind of pulling yourself back again. And I think, listening to other business influencers, so guys that I draw aspiration or inspiration from, guys like Gary Vaynerchuk. He's prolific in the marketing world, and I'm actually loving a lot of his content's moving more towards, or at least including, a huge amount of self-awareness. And one of the things he says is, which I completely agree, is self-awareness is like one of the biggest superpowers you can ever develop.
Absolutely.
Because if you cannot be aware of yourself, you cannot be aware of others.
Yes.
And if you are aware of yourself and what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you can and cannot, or should not work on, that'll help you become a better person, which will help you run your business better.
Yeah.
So, saying that, what are some really practical, helpful tips and advice that you would give to businesswomen and businessmen in developing that? Developing self-awareness, developing that awareness of you.
Yeah.
So that, and maybe you can share a bit about how that could impact your business life. So,
yeah, I love that, Luke. I totally agree that self-awareness is probably the number one thing we need to develop, and they're not the only thing. So for me, self-awareness is first, and that allows you to then hopefully, because this is maybe the step people miss, develop self-compassion.
Self-compassion.
Yeah, so self-awareness and understanding, and then self-compassion.
So you have to have, self-awareness is one thing, but self-compassion is the next step.
I would say so, yeah, because you can understand yourself and then totally beat yourself up about the weaknesses you do see.
Yes, okay.
And spend your whole time trying to correct those, and I think you could end up down some maybe self-destructive paths like that. So for me, absolutely self-awareness, so important, and then self-compassion to follow it. But coming back to self-awareness, I would say that especially in a role like mine, where I am my number one therapeutic tool, if we can call it that. It is me interacting with someone. It is through the filter of me, my personality, my own background, that knowledge and sort of advice comes. And I've got to be aware that that's happening. So that's self-awareness. And I then need to make sure that I am growing and developing as a person, so that whatever knowledge and skills and experience that I acquire, that I want to pass on to people, is coming through an appropriate and healthy filter, I suppose. So my advice to people would be to know when you need to seek out help. So I have at different times sought the help of counselors, been to coaches, looked at ways of developing myself, sort of personal development. But all of that, again, with that sense of self-compassion. So, yes, I have limitations. I can do many things, but I can't do all things or everything, and that's where I need other people. Knowing when I need that, knowing when I need other people, and calling on them. I think constant reflection, which is not the same as introspection. So reflecting on ourselves and looking at how we've handled situations or people, asking people for feedback, a very vulnerable thing to do. Yes. Tell me, Luke, how do you experience me? And how was this interaction for you? That is a difficult question to ask people. That is hard. But so we learn from others. We are mirrored in other people. and we can learn from them how am I coming across, and then we can change. So self-awareness with self-compassion hopefully leads to self-development, but I think that's an intentional process, not something happens just naturally without our effort or attention to it. Yeah.
So it's really interesting because that kind of bridges the point of self to community, because you cannot, and whatever community looks like for you, you can't be truly self-aware without the feedback from others.
Right.
And you need to have those people around you that you can trust.
Yeah.
And that you can walk alongside with. And maybe it looks like going to a counseling. Maybe it looks like therapy. Maybe it looks like finding a group of people that have a common goal in self-improvement, or whether it's online or offline or in person, depending on your context.
Yeah.
And I really like how that plays into community and how important it is, because I think a lot of, and just in my own experience, it can be quite a lonely journey running and starting a business. And I know for a lot of people out there, and it's something that I've been very aware of, is how lonely people feel.
Yeah.
And especially after the whole pandemic thing too, because now everyone works remotely, and that online connection is never the same. And that's on top of running your own business, is just purely a lonely thing if we don't intentionally and deliberately choose to do it with other people.
Right.
Whether it looks like a business partner or just reaching out to your competitor and establishing a friendship and a relationship, or suppliers or whoever and whatever.
And that's a brave thing to do.
I know.
Wow.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
But I think it's necessary.
Yeah. I think we are better together with other people. We really are. Like I said earlier, I know that I can be a very independent person, but even this book, of which I am the author, was not something I produced on my own. It reflects other people's input. It reflects the voice of people with pain who read it and who gave me their sort of quotes. And I think this book as well I've tried to bring that self-understanding in as well. So there's the science. So there's the science where we can try and generalize and say these are the things that apply to most people. But what people need to be able to do is personalize that and take it to themselves. So hopefully self-understanding plus scientific knowledge plus social support, there's so many things that go into helping each of us progress in the way that we do. And I think apart from self-awareness, the two qualities that I've tried to intentionally develop or foster or cultivate in myself are curiosity and humility. Even in my children, from when they were little, curiosity was something that was important to develop in them, getting them to notice things. We're walking along, walking in the park. Ooh, have a look at that little flower. Have a look at that. Noticing and then questioning. And I think curiosity can help any of us in so many ways. It helps us overcome fear. It helps us overcome disconnection. Because as soon as I'm curious about your life, or as soon as I'm curious instead of afraid, I move towards something that I don't know about, and the fear of the unknown goes away, and I get involved with it.
That's awesome.
So curiosity, self-awareness, and then humility.
Humility is such a big one.
Just recognizing I don't know everything. I don't even know what I might know and don't know. Those are qualities that I would encourage any business person, any practitioner to keep.
There's such a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And I'd actually be really interested to explore that a little bit sometime. But I think that's
What do you think is the difference?
I think we can be confident in something we could be sure of something, but I think where humility plays such an important role is saying, I'm confident in this, but I could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
Or I could have the wrong approach. Or I'm confident in this based on my life experience and my filters and my approach to how I've come about this. But the humility part is being open. For me, the humility part is being open to input from other people and self-awareness and being open to discussing something. Or,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's for me. What would you say for you?
Yeah, very much I think along the same lines. For me, you can have confidence with humility where you're just saying, this is what I've come to right now, but I am open to change.
Yeah.
And it is possible that I'm wrong. So this is my stance right now based on my best assessment of whatever information I have or experience or whatever. But please let me know your perspective. Let me know if I'm missing something. I don't have the whole picture, and that's what none of us can ever have is the whole 100%. Picture. I need you to give me a piece of the picture that I don't have. Yeah. So I think humility is the recognition that I have value. I am someone of value and worth, but I need others to give their value and worth to my life as well.
That's awesome. That's cool. So I have these cards. So it's a new little installation on the podcast. And
you're going to draw a card and ask me a question.
Yes. So before we do that, I just want to, thank you for your time and thank you for just the value that you bring. I know not just to my life, but to the lives of those around us.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing here and adding value into the space of our viewers and the community that we're building. And and I wish you all the best, and I hope you sell millions and millions and millions of copies of your book.
Thank you.
And it's such an honor and a privilege to have been and still be a part of your journey and part of your story. And thanks, you so much.
Yeah, and for your support and your friendship.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
So I've got these cards from Stephen Bartlett's The Diary of a CEO. I don't know if you are aware of that podcast.
I'm not, but I think you've mentioned it.
So there are a bunch of questions written on here. And in light of that tradition on their podcast, I thought, well, let's just carry it over here because I really like it. So I'm going to pick a random card.
Okay.
Or maybe would you like to pick a random card?
All right. I feel like we're on a magic show. Hey,
this could be
shall I remember it and you try and guess it?
Yeah. Can you make it disappear? Cool.
Okay.
And let me read it
give it to you. Okay.
Okay. Oh, so maybe you can read it out, and then you can give us the answer.
Oh wow, this is kind of along the lines of what we've been talking about, I guess. So the question is, how much do you accept yourself, have positive thoughts about yourself, have healed your wounds, and fully love who you are authentically?
Wow.
Gosh, there's a whole lot to that. Wow, we could have another whole hour.
I know.
How much do you accept yourself? I think, have positive thoughts and healed your wounds. Okay.
How cool is that? This came
wow,
up
that's along the lines of what we've been saying. I would say that I, at this stage of my journey, obviously accept myself a whole lot more than I used to. I love turning 40. I know some women freak out about it, but I love turning 40 because turning 40 was like, okay, I am going to do what I want to do. I mean, everyone should do that anyway, but for me, it was this thing of I've reached a sense of feeling settled in who I am, not static, but settled. So much more accepting of myself. I do think I have a way to go in terms of healing wounds. I think those sort of things are maybe never completely done, and that's okay. I think what I've accepted about my woundedness or weaknesses or whatever limitations there are is that they aren't just things to be healed and sorted out and, oh, thank goodness I've got that out my way and it's in the past. they are actually opportunities for connection and growth.
Yeah.
I mean, growth is obvious, but I think connection as well. I know, it's my experience that it is the most vulnerable parts of myself and the woundedness of me that touches people most. Most people know me as quite a competent person. I come across I have a very good therapeutic mask. Because obviously my stuff is not to be brought into a session with someone, but there are certainly memorable moments when I have allowed that to drop and I've shared something vulnerable, and those have been the most powerful.
Awesome.
So for me, I would say I accept that I am imperfect. I accept that I have wounds that still need to be healed. And I'm not like, oh, yay, let's kind of go sort that out. I'm so excited. No, I mean, that's like being a masochist. It's more that, okay, at the right time, that's going to be sorted out. But in the sorting out or the healing of that, it's actually going to go beyond me, and that is a powerful thing.
That's awesome.
You know, so, yeah.
That's how you do it authentically.
I think so. It would be inauthentic to just try and get rid of our woundedness, eliminate it. I think it is that makes us most human and most compassionate.
That's awesome.
For other people. Yeah.
Good answer.
Thank you.
That was the right answer. No, I'm kidding.
I think it's difficult to answer questions straight out of a card pack, but I'm glad that it's linked to what we've said, and
that's cool.
It's important.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Luke.
And where can people find you?
People can find me via my website, so helenroome.co.za. It's Roome with an E on the end. And if they want to order the book, it is on the Amazon platform, so international readers can find the ebook and paper book there. My local South African readers can order directly from my website, helenroome.co.za.
Awesome.
Thanks, Luke.
And you're on the socials and on LinkedIn?
I am on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, so you'll probably find me on any of those. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, great.
Well, thank you.
Thanks so much.
And thanks to all our listeners and our viewers, and thank you for your time. Would love to get any feedback from you guys on this episode, and if you found any of this really helpful and it's maybe struck a nerve in a good way or a bad way, give us a like, subscribe for more, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you so that we can engage a little bit.